Welcome to our channel. In this video, we uncover the chilling secrets of the fallen angels as revealed in the mysterious book of Enoch. Who were these divine beings that defied heaven? What forbidden knowledge did they bring to humanity? And why were they cast into darkness for eternity? Hidden for centuries, the book of Enoch offers shocking insights that challenge everything you thought you knew about angels, demons, and the origins of evil. Stay with us as we dive deep into ancient texts and unveil the untold story of the Watchers and their fall from grace. Let's get started. The identity of the fallen angels. Judgment of the angels and the Nephilim. The concept of divine judgment has been a central theme in Judeo-Christian theology. Among the more mysterious and often controversial aspects of this doctrine is the judgment of angels, specifically the fallen angels, and their connection with the Nephilim, beings mentioned briefly in the early chapters of Genesis. This topic, though enigmatic, touches on deep themes of rebellion, divine order, and the consequences of transgression against God's law, both in the spiritual and earthly realms. This essay explores the biblical and extra-biblical foundations for understanding the judgment of the angels and the Nephilim, drawing from sources such as Genesis, the Book of Enoch, 2 Peter, Jude, and Revelation, as well as historical interpretations from Jewish and Christian traditions. Who are the angels and the Nephilim? 1. The angels in question. In Scripture, angels are spiritual beings created by God, serving as messengers, ministers, and agents of His divine will. While most angels remain loyal to God, some chose to rebel. These rebellious angels are often referred to as fallen angels. The most notable among them is Satan, but many others are believed to have joined him in defiance. 2. The Nephilim. The Nephilim are first introduced in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." The term sons of God, Hebrew, B'nai Ha-Elohim, has long been interpreted in different ways. The most ancient and widely accepted interpretation, particularly in Jewish tradition, is that these were angels, more specifically fallen angels, who took human women as wives. Their offspring were the Nephilim, often described as giants or mighty men. 2. The rebellion and sin of the angels. 1. The Book of Enoch's account. While the Genesis passage is brief, the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish apocalyptic text, not part of the biblical canon for most traditions, elaborates extensively on this event. It identifies a group of 200 angels known as the Watchers, led by figures like Semyaza and Azazel, who descended to earth and corrupted humanity. According to 1 Enoch 6-16, these angels took human wives, taught forbidden knowledge, warfare, sorcery, astrology, cosmetics, etc. Produced hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, who became violent and destructive. Defiled themselves in the natural order. 2. The consequences of the angels' sin. God judged these angels severely. And the Lord said unto Michael, "Go, bind Semjaza and his associates, in the valleys of the earth till the day of their judgment." 1 Enoch 10:11-13. The judgment involved binding these angels in the abyss until the final judgment. Azazel in particular, is cast into a desert and covered with rocks. 3. Biblical affirmations of angelic judgment. Though the Book of Enoch is not canonical in most Christian traditions, except the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, New Testament writers seem to reference its themes and even specific passages. 1. 2 Peter 2 verses 4-5. For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment, if He did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah. This passage directly links the sin of certain angels with the time of Noah, reinforcing the Genesis-Enoch connection. The Greek word translated as hell is Tartarus, a term used in Greek mythology for the deep abyss where rebellious beings are imprisoned. 2. Jude 1 verses 6 to 7. And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. Jude explicitly mentions angels abandoning their proper domain, an apparent reference to the watchers descending to earth. He likens their sin to Sodom and Gomorrah, cities known for sexual immorality and unnatural desire. These passages reveal that a specific group of angels committed a grave sin. They are now bound in chains, awaiting future judgment. Their actions are tied to a rebellion against divine order, especially regarding sexuality and human corruption. 4. The judgment of the Nephilim. 1. The flood as judgment. The Nephilim, as the unnatural offspring of angels and humans, were a major reason for the corruption of the earth. Genesis continues, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled." Genesis 6 verses 5 to 6. The solution was the flood, which wiped out all except Noah and his family. The destruction of the Nephilim was part of this purging. 2. Were there Nephilim after the flood? Numbers 13:33 records the words of the Israelite spies. "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." This reference has led to speculation that some Nephilim survived or reappeared after the flood. Some scholars believe the term was reused for later giants, like the Anakim or Rephaim, while others propose post-flood genetic corruption or metaphorical language. However, it is clear that the original Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers, were destroyed in the flood as part of divine judgment. V. Final judgment of the angels. 1. Awaiting judgment. The fallen angels, those who sinned before the flood, are not yet fully judged. As Peter and Jude state, they are kept in chains, awaiting the final judgment. 2. Revelation's vision. In the book of Revelation, we see glimpses of this final judgment. Revelation 12 describes a war in heaven between Michael and his angels and the dragon, Satan, and his angels. The dragon is cast down to earth. Revelation 20 verse 10 speaks of the lake of fire as the final destination for the devil and his followers. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, and will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Although it specifically names Satan, it is assumed that the rebellious angels will share in this fate. Matthew 25 verse 41 confirms this. "Then he will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" 3. The role of humans in angelic judgment. A surprising statement appears in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 3. "Do you not know that we will judge angels?" Paul reminds the Corinthian believers that in the age to come, redeemed humanity will participate in God's justice, even over angelic beings. This underscores the seriousness of angelic rebellion and the high calling of the redeemed. 6. Theological implications. 1. The cosmic consequences of rebellion. The story of the fallen angels and the Nephilim emphasizes that sin is not just a human issue, it's a cosmic rebellion. Spiritual beings who were created good and powerful chose to rebel, corrupting the earth. Their judgment reflects that no being is above God's law, and that even the highest angels are accountable. 2. Boundaries in creation. The sin of the angels involved crossing divinely established boundaries, angels taking human form, engaging in sexuality and producing unnatural offspring. This aligns with other biblical judgments where transgressing God's created order, e.g. Sodom, Babel, results in divine wrath. 3. Divine justice and mercy. God's judgment on the Nephilim and the angels was immediate and severe, but he also preserved Noah, demonstrating his commitment to justice and mercy. The final judgment still awaits, a sign of God's patience and timing. 4. Spiritual warfare and vigilance. For believers today, the judgment of the angels serves as a warning and a call to vigilance. It reveals that spiritual rebellion has tangible effects on earth, and that spiritual warfare is real. Yet it also points to the certainty that evil will be judged. 7. Contemporary interpretations and controversies. Modern scholars and theologians hold differing views on these accounts. Literal view. Many ancient and some modern interpreters take the Genesis 6 and Enoch narratives literally, believing that angels indeed mated with human women. Sethite view. Others argue that sons of God refers to the righteous line of Seth and the daughters of men, to the ungodly line of Cain. Mythological or allegorical view. Some suggest the stories are symbolic of corruption or mythological in nature, not to be read literally. Despite the debate, early Jewish and Christian writings, like Enoch, Jubilees and the Epistles, strongly support a supernatural understanding of these events. The judgment of the angels and the Nephilim is a rich and sobering topic. It reflects God's intolerance for rebellion and corruption, even among the celestial beings. The sins of the fallen angels disrupted both heaven and earth, necessitating divine intervention through the flood and future judgment. Though mysterious and at times speculative, these stories teach enduring truths. God's justice is impartial, boundaries matter in creation, and divine order will ultimately be restored. As the faithful await the final judgment, these accounts inspire awe, caution, and hope in the sovereign plan of God. The identity of the fallen angels. The concept of fallen angels is one of the most compelling and enigmatic themes in religious literature. These beings, once divine, are portrayed as cast out of heaven due to rebellion, pride, or moral corruption. Their stories are foundational to the theological framework of evil and cosmic struggle in many traditions, especially within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This essay explores the identity of the fallen angels by examining their origins, the scriptural and extra-biblical references, the symbolic meanings ascribed to them, and how they have been interpreted over time. Origins of the concept. The term fallen angel refers to those angels who were expelled from heaven due to disobedience to God. Though the Bible does not use the phrase explicitly, the concept is strongly implied in several texts. The most referenced source is Revelation 12 verses 7 to 9, which describes a war in heaven where Michael and his angels fight against the dragon and his angels, interpreted as Satan and his followers. The passage concludes, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him." This foundational image sets the stage for understanding fallen angels as rebellious beings who once held celestial status. However, the most detailed account of the fall of angels is found not in the canonical texts of the Bible, but in extra-biblical literature, especially the Book of Enoch, a Jewish apocalyptic text that expands on Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Book of Enoch elaborates on this passage, naming the fallen angels as watchers, a group of 200 angels who descended to earth, lusted after human women, and fathered the Nephilim, giant, violent beings. Their leader, Semjaza or Semiaza, and his cohort, including Azazel, are condemned for corrupting humanity and teaching forbidden knowledge such as weaponry, sorcery, and cosmetics. Biblical and extra-biblical references. Though fallen angels are not a major focus of canonical scripture, their presence can be inferred in a few key passages. 1. Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 15. This passage refers to a figure called Lucifer, Latin for light bringer, described as having fallen from heaven. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. Though this is primarily a taunt against the king of Babylon, later Christian interpretation associated Lucifer with Satan, identifying him as a high angel who rebelled against God due to pride. 2. Ezekiel 28 verses 12 to 17. This oracle against the king of Tyre includes imagery of a being who was the model of perfection, blameless in his ways until wickedness was found in him. Again, though originally intended as a metaphor for earthly arrogance, theologians have read it as an allusion to Satan's origin. 3. Jude 1 verse 6 and 2 Peter 2 verse 4. Both New Testament epistles refer to angels who sinned and are now kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains. These references align with the narrative in 1 Enoch and demonstrate that early Christians accepted or were at least familiar with the idea of rebellious angels punished for their transgressions. Names and identities of fallen angels. Various traditions and texts assign names and identities to fallen angels. The Book of Enoch is the most detailed in this regard, listing 20 leaders of the fallen watchers. Some notable names include Simjaza, the leader who convinced the others to join in his rebellion. Azazel, accused of teaching humanity warfare and cosmetics, punished by being bound in a desert. Armoros, Kokabil, Barakil. Other named watchers with specific roles in corrupting humanity. In Christian tradition, the most prominent fallen angel is Lucifer, commonly equated with Satan. According to post-biblical interpretations, Lucifer was a high-ranking archangel who became prideful and sought to ascend above God, based largely on Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. Consequently, he and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, Revelation 12 verse 4. Other sources, like the Apocalypse of Abraham and the Testament of Solomon, add to the list of fallen angels, including beings who tempt humans and rule over specific sins or territories. Interpretive perspectives. The fallen angels have been interpreted differently across theological and philosophical traditions. Broadly, there are three main approaches: literal, symbolic, and mythological. Literal interpretation. In this view, fallen angels are real, spiritual beings who were created by God but fell due to their own free will. This interpretation is prevalent in conservative Christian theology, especially in Catholic, Orthodox, and evangelical traditions. The fall of the angels is seen as the primordial rebellion, preceding even the fall of Adam and Eve. This view maintains that Satan, once a glorious archangel, led a rebellion against God out of pride and ambition. The other fallen angels, now demons, serve him in his ongoing war against God's kingdom and influence human affairs through temptation and possession. Symbolic interpretation. Many scholars, especially modern theologians and biblical critics, view the stories of fallen angels symbolically. According to this perspective, the narrative reflects human struggles with pride, power, and moral failure. The fallen angels are personifications of human vices or warnings against overreaching ambition. Isaiah and Ezekiel, for instance, are understood to use the imagery of fallen angels metaphorically to condemn the hubris of earthly rulers. Lucifer, in this view, is not a literal being but a symbol of prideful rebellion. Mythological and cultural analysis. Some scholars examine the concept of fallen angels in the broader context of ancient Near Eastern mythology. Similar stories of divine beings who descend to earth and become corrupt can be found in Mesopotamian, Canaanite, and Greek mythology. For example, the story of the Titan Prometheus, who defies the gods and brings fire, knowledge, to humanity, parallels Azazel's role in Enoch. This comparative approach suggests that the fallen angels may represent an amalgamation of various mythic themes adapted by the Israelites during periods of exile and cultural exchange. Theological implications. The doctrine of fallen angels plays a crucial role in understanding the problem of evil in Christian theology. Their fall precedes the fall of man and thus provides a cosmic dimension to the origin of sin. According to Augustine and later theologians like Thomas Aquinas, angels were created with free will. Some chose to love God, while others chose pride and self-exaltation. The existence of these beings provides an explanation for the presence of evil spirits and demonic activity in the world. Moreover, their punishment serves as a warning to humanity about the consequences of rebellion. Islamic perspective. In Islam, the concept of fallen angels is treated differently. The Quran does not support the idea that angels can sin, as they are described as perfectly obedient to God, Quran 66:6. Instead, the figure most analogous to Satan is Iblis, who is a jinn, not an angel, Quran 18:50. Iblis refuses to bow to Adam out of pride and is cast out of God's grace. Some Islamic traditions mention Harut and Marut, two angels sent to test humanity in Babylon. They taught people sorcery but warned them against using it. While some see this as an example of angels falling, Orthodox Islamic theology maintains that true angels do not disobey God. Fallen angels in literature and culture. The motif of the fallen angel has permeated literature and art for centuries. John Milton's Paradise Lost offers the most influential literary depiction, portraying Lucifer, Satan, as a tragic anti-hero who declares, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." Milton's Satan is proud, articulate, and sympathetic in many ways, a reflection of Enlightenment concerns with individualism and rebellion against tyranny. Romantic poets such as Blake and Byron also reimagined the fallen angel as a figure of defiance and creativity, often aligned with the artist's struggle against societal norms. In modern pop culture, fallen angels appear in movies, books, and television shows as complex, brooding figures who struggle with redemption, love, and identity. This evolution reflects a shift from viewing them as purely evil to seeing them as tragic, misunderstood characters. The identity of the fallen angels is a rich and multifaceted subject that blends theology, mythology, literature, and psychology. Whether seen as literal beings, symbols of rebellion, or cultural archetypes, fallen angels continue to captivate human imagination. Their stories raise essential questions about the nature of free will, the origins of evil, and the struggle between obedience and autonomy. In religious contexts, they serve as cautionary tales about pride and disobedience. In literary and cultural representations, they reflect the complexity of the human condition, the desire to ascend, the pain of failure, and the possibility of redemption. Ultimately, the fallen angels stand as enduring figures in the spiritual and moral landscape of humanity, simultaneously feared and empathized with, despised and admired. Their fall from grace reminds us not only of divine judgment but also of the frailty and grandeur of the will. Discover the ancient mystery of the Nephilim, giants of the Bible and Book of Enoch. Across the ancient pages of the Bible and other ancient texts lies a chilling and captivating mystery, the Nephilim. These giant beings, briefly mentioned in Genesis and elaborated on in apocryphal books like the Book of Enoch, have puzzled scholars, theologians, and mystery seekers for centuries. Were they fallen angels, human hybrids, or simply misunderstood metaphors? In this video we will unravel their origin, explore their purpose, and trace their fate, using scripture, ancient writings, and modern-day interpretations. So sit back and prepare to uncover one of the Bible's most enigmatic secrets, the Nephilim. 1. Who were the Nephilim? The word Nephilim first appears in Genesis 6 verses 1-4, in a passage that has sparked centuries of debate. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The term Nephilim is often translated as giants, but in Hebrew the root word NPL means to fall, or fallen ones. This immediately raises questions. Were these giants in stature or fallen in nature? Some traditions interpret the sons of God, B'nai Elohim, as fallen angels who took human wives, producing giant offspring, the Nephilim. Others argue they were simply godly descendants of Seth intermarrying with the wicked descendants of Cain. But if that's true, why call their offspring giants, or heroes of old? 2. The Book of Enoch's deeper insight. To truly grasp the mystery of the Nephilim, we turn to the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text not found in the Bible but widely read in early Judaism and early Christianity. In 1 Enoch chapter 6-7 we find a stunning elaboration. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after the daughters of men. They were in all 200 who descended on Mount Hermon. And they took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them. And they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. These angels, known as the Watchers, broke divine laws by descending to earth and corrupting human genetics and knowledge. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were violent giants who consumed all the acquisitions of men, even turning to cannibalism, according to Enoch. This paints the Nephilim not just as mythical beings, but as a cosmic corruption, beings that defied the natural order. 3. Their purpose, a cosmic rebellion? So what was the Nephilim's purpose? Were they merely the result of divine lust, or part of a larger rebellion? Many scholars suggest the story of the Watchers and their Nephilim offspring mirrors ancient Mesopotamian myths of gods mating with humans. Yet, in the Hebrew tradition the act is not celebrated, it is condemned. In this light, the Nephilim become more than giants. They represent a cosmic contamination, an unnatural mingling between the divine and the human, that provoked divine wrath. Indeed, according to Enoch, the Nephilim brought war, magic, weaponry, astrology, and forbidden knowledge to mankind. They were the catalysts of chaos, leading to widespread corruption and ultimately to God's judgment. For the flood, God's response to the Nephilim. Genesis 6 is followed by the story of Noah's flood, which is more than just a tale of divine cleansing. It's directly linked to the Nephilim. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created. Genesis 6 verses 5-7. According to the book of Enoch, the Watchers begged Enoch to intercede with God after seeing their children, the Nephilim, destroy humanity. But God rejected their plea. The flood was a divine reset, meant to cleanse the earth of Nephilim blood. But strangely, Numbers 13:33, written long after the flood, claims, we saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Enoch come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes. How could the Nephilim still exist after the flood? This has puzzled interpreters for centuries. 5. Did the Nephilim return after the flood? Some theories propose that the Nephilim bloodline survived through Noah's family, perhaps through his sons' wives, or that another group of fallen angels returned after the flood. In the book of Numbers, the Anakim, Rephaim, and Emim are all described as giants living in Canaan. King Og of Bashan is said to sleep in a bed over 13 feet long. These may be post-flood echoes of Nephilim bloodlines. Jewish tradition and even early church fathers like Justin Martyr and Irenaeus believed that some Nephilim did survive, and their descendants plagued the Israelites throughout the Old Testament. So while the flood purged much of the earth, it may not have completely eradicated the Nephilim threat. 6. Nephilim in modern theories. Today, the Nephilim remain popular in alternative history, fringe theology, and even UFO circles. Some believe the Nephilim were ancient hybrids created by extraterrestrial beings, interpreting the sons of God as visitors from other worlds. Others suggest the Nephilim were part of an ancient genetic experiment, a concept that aligns with the Book of Enoch's themes of forbidden knowledge and biocorruption. In modern times, these theories have influenced fiction, conspiracy theories, and pop culture, from ancient aliens to the Book of Eli. The idea of a hidden race of ancient giants strikes a deep chord in our collective imagination. 7. Theological implications. But beyond the mystery and mythology, the story of the Nephilim raises theological questions. What does it mean that heavenly beings could mate with humans? How does that affect the understanding of spiritual beings in the material world? Others suggest the Nephilim were part of an ancient genetic experiment, a concept that aligns with the Book of Enoch's themes of forbidden knowledge and biocorruption. In modern times, these theories have influenced fiction, conspiracy theories, and pop culture, from ancient aliens to the Book of Eli. The idea of a hidden race of ancient giants strikes a deep chord in our collective imagination. 7. Theological implications. But beyond the mystery and mythology, the story of the Nephilim raises theological questions. What does it mean that heavenly beings could mate with humans? How does that affect the understanding of spiritual beings in the material world? Many theologians argue that these stories are symbolic, representing the depth of humanity's fall and the extent of evil before the flood. Others take them more literally as warnings of spiritual corruption and boundary crossing. Ultimately, the Nephilim challenge our assumptions about the ancient world, the nature of angels, and the unseen dimensions of reality. 8. The fate of the Nephilim. According to the Book of Enoch, the souls of the Nephilim, though their bodies were destroyed in the flood, became evil spirits that wander the earth, what later texts would call demons. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies. 1 Enoch 15:8-9. This chilling idea suggests that demons are not fallen angels, but the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, condemned to roam and torment. In this view, the Nephilim didn't just vanish, they transitioned from physical terror to spiritual menace. 9. Lost knowledge and hidden truth. So why was the book of Enoch excluded from the Bible? Why is the story of the Nephilim so brief in Genesis but richly detailed in banned texts? Some believe the story was suppressed because it threatened theological simplicity. Others think it reflects a hidden tradition of ancient knowledge, one that the early church couldn't endorse. Today, the story of the Nephilim invites us to explore ancient texts with new eyes. Whether literal giants, symbolic fallen beings, or spiritual metaphors, the Nephilim represent the blurred line between heaven and earth, order and chaos, divine and profane. In the end, the Nephilim are more than just ancient giants. They are symbols of rebellion, corruption, and mystery. They point to an ancient time when the boundaries between the divine and human were crossed, with catastrophic consequences. Whether you view them as myth, metaphor, or ancient reality, the Nephilim continue to spark fascination. From the Bible to Enoch, from ancient Mesopotamia to modern theories, they remain one of the most provocative enigmas in biblical history. If you've enjoyed this journey through lost knowledge and forbidden lore, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your theories about the Nephilim in the comments below. Were they fallen angels, hybrids, or something else entirely? Join us next time as we continue to uncover the mysteries of ancient texts, hidden histories, and divine secrets. Until then, stay curious and keep seeking the truth. Giants on Earth, the mysterious Nephilim explained. Across cultures and continents, stories of giants have captivated human imagination. But perhaps none are more mysterious or controversial than the biblical Nephilim. Mentioned briefly yet powerfully in ancient texts, the Nephilim have sparked centuries of debate. Were they fallen angels, hybrid offspring, or simply great warriors? Why were they so feared that their presence warranted a global flood? This article delves deep into the origins, nature, and interpretations of the Nephilim, exploring what the ancient texts really say, and what mysteries still surround these so-called giants of the earth. The biblical origin of the Nephilim. The Nephilim first appear in Genesis 6 verses 1-4, in one of the most cryptic passages in the Hebrew Bible. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Genesis 6 verses 1-4 NIV. This passage precedes the narrative of Noah's flood, suggesting that the rise of the Nephilim was somehow connected to the increasing corruption of the world. The Hebrew term, Nephilim, is often translated as giants, but its root meaning is ambiguous. Derived from the Hebrew verb npl, meaning to fall, some scholars interpret Nephilim as fallen ones, the sons of God and the daughters of men. The identity of the sons of God is a central question in understanding the Nephilim. There are three primary interpretations. 1. Angelic interpretation, supernatural view. This is the oldest and most traditional view, held by early Jewish writers and many early Christians. According to this interpretation, the sons of God were fallen angels who descended to earth, lusted after human women, and produced hybrid offspring, the Nephilim. This view is supported by the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text excluded from the canonical Bible. Enoch 6-7 describes a group of 200 angels, known as the Watchers, who descend to Mount Hermon and take human wives. Their children were monstrous giants who consumed all the resources of earth and turned violent. This corrupted world is what led God to send the flood. And they became pregnant and they bare great giants, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Enoch 7:2-4. 2. Royal or dynastic interpretation, human view. Some scholars, especially during the post-exilic period, interpreted the sons of God as royal figures or rulers, possibly tyrannical kings who took many wives. The Nephilim would then be their offspring, viewed as mighty warriors or nobles, not supernatural beings. 3. Sethite interpretation, moral view. This Christian interpretation became dominant in later centuries. Here the sons of God are seen as the descendants of Seth, the righteous son of Adam, while the daughters of men are descendants of Cain, the sinful brother. Their intermarriage led to moral corruption, and their offspring, possibly Nephilim, were metaphorically giants in wickedness. The Nephilim and the Great Flood. The appearance of the Nephilim is directly linked to the reason for the flood in Genesis. God saw that human wickedness was great and decided to wipe out humanity, sparing only Noah, who was said to be blameless in his generation. This correlation raises intriguing questions. Were the Nephilim part of the reason for God's judgment? If they were hybrid beings, part angel, part human, was the flood an act of genetic cleansing, so to speak, to restore divine order? The Book of Enoch strongly affirms this idea. According to Enoch, the fallen angels corrupted the earth not only through their offspring but by teaching forbidden knowledge, like sorcery, astrology, and warfare. Post-flood Nephilim. Why were they still around? A major mystery arises from the phrase, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward," Genesis 6 verse 4. If the flood wiped out all living beings except Noah's family, how could the Nephilim appear again? The Nephilim re-emerge in the Book of Numbers, during the Israelites' exploration of Canaan. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Enoch come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Numbers 13:33. This suggests that giant-like beings still existed in the Promised Land, an idea that terrified the spies and discouraged the Israelites. These beings are called the Anakim or Rephaim, often associated with giant clans. There are a few theories explaining their post-flood survival. Second incursion theory. Some believe more fallen angels came to earth after the flood and repeated the corruption. Survival theory. Others speculate that one of Noah's daughters-in-law may have carried Nephilim DNA. Exaggeration theory. From a skeptical point of view, the Nephilim of Numbers may have been great warriors or tall tribes whom the Israelites perceived as giants out of fear. Who were the Rephaim, Anakim, and other giants? The Bible and other ancient texts speak of several giant tribes that may be linked to the Nephilim. These include Anakim, descendants of Anak, seen in Canaan, described as exceptionally tall and fearsome. Rephaim, an ancient race of giants, mentioned in Deuteronomy and Genesis. Og, king of Bashan, was a Rephaim and had a massive iron bed over 13 feet long, Deuteronomy 3 verse 11. Zamzummim and Emim, other tribes in the Transjordan said to be giants and feared by neighboring peoples. These references imply that giant-like humans, or at least legendary ones, persisted long after the flood, suggesting that Nephilim-like beings were either symbolic of power or had lingering genetic roots. The Book of Enoch and the Watchers. Though not included in the traditional biblical canon, the Book of Enoch was highly influential in early Jewish and Christian thought. It provides the most detailed account of the origin and fate of the Nephilim. The Watchers, the angels who fell, are judged by God. The Nephilim, their monstrous offspring, are said to be killed in the flood, but their spirits remain on earth, becoming evil spirits or demons. Others suggest the Nephilim were part of an ancient genetic experiment, a concept that aligns with the Book of Enoch's themes of forbidden knowledge and biocorruption. In modern times, these theories have influenced fiction, conspiracy theories, and pop culture, from ancient aliens to the Book of Eli. The idea of a hidden race of ancient giants strikes a deep chord in our collective imagination. 7. Theological implications. But beyond the mystery and mythology, the story of the Nephilim raises theological questions. What does it mean that heavenly beings could mate with humans? How does that affect the understanding of spiritual beings and the material world? Many theologians argue that these stories are symbolic, representing the depth of humanity's fall and the extent of evil before the flood. Others take them more literally as warnings of spiritual corruption and boundary crossing. Ultimately, the Nephilim challenge our assumptions about the ancient world, the nature of angels, and the unseen dimensions of reality. 8. The fate of the Nephilim. According to the book of Enoch, the souls of the Nephilim, though their bodies were destroyed in the flood, became evil spirits that wander the earth, what later texts would call demons. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies. 1 Enoch 15:8, 9. This chilling idea suggests that demons are not fallen angels, but the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, condemned to roam and torment. In this view, the Nephilim didn't just vanish, they transitioned from physical terror to spiritual menace. 9. Lost knowledge and hidden truth. So why was the book of Enoch excluded from the Bible? Why is the story of the Nephilim so brief in Genesis but richly detailed in banned texts? Some believe the story was suppressed because it threatened theological simplicity. Others think it reflects a hidden tradition of ancient knowledge, one that the early church couldn't endorse. Today, the story of the Nephilim invites us to explore ancient texts with new eyes. Whether literal giants, symbolic fallen beings, or spiritual metaphors, the Nephilim represent the blurred line between heaven and earth, order and chaos, divine and profane. In the end, the Nephilim are more than just ancient giants. They are symbols of rebellion, corruption, and mystery. They point to an ancient time when the boundaries between the divine and human were crossed, with catastrophic consequences. Whether you view them as myth, metaphor, or ancient reality, the Nephilim continue to spark fascination. From the Bible to Enoch, from ancient Mesopotamia to modern theories, they remain one of the most provocative enigmas in biblical history. Ancient religious texts often speak of not just celestial light but also of terrifying darkness. This darkness is not metaphorical, it is described as a real, tangible place. In traditions rooted in Jewish apocalyptic literature, especially the Book of Enoch, we find references to a dark, chaotic realm hidden deep beneath creation. This realm is not hell as popularly imagined, but something older, more primal. A cosmic prison where rebellious angels, also called Watchers, are bound. Suspended in stasis, enveloped in gloom and isolated from divine grace, this place represents the outcome of defying the divine order. To explore this realm is to descend into the abyss, a space between judgment and annihilation, chaos and containment. This essay will unpack its origin, its connection to fallen angels, its mythic architecture, and its symbolic significance across religious and mythological traditions. 1. The Watchers and their rebellion. The Book of Enoch, particularly the section known as the Book of the Watchers, 1 Enoch 1-36, introduces the Watchers, angels sent by God to watch over humanity. But instead of serving as guardians, they fell into temptation. These celestial beings, led by Semjaza and Azazel, lusted after human women, descended to earth, and fathered a race of hybrid giants known as the Nephilim. Their transgression wasn't merely moral, it disrupted the fabric of creation. They taught forbidden knowledge, weaponry, sorcery, astrology, and vanity. The harmony between heaven and earth fractured. In response, God ordered their punishment. The loyal archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, acted as enforcers of divine justice. But instead of immediate destruction, the Watchers were cast into a realm more dreadful, a dark, timeless prison hidden from both heaven and earth. 2. The Abyss, description of the dark realm. In Enoch 10:4-12, we find one of the most vivid descriptions of this prison. Bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudiel, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks and cover him with darkness. This is the first glimpse of Dudiel, a symbolic or real location believed to be a desolate, barren abyss, where rebellious spirits are chained in eternal twilight. It is not hell in the Greco-Roman sense, nor Sheol, the Hebrew underworld, but rather a celestial detention zone. The features of this realm include absolute darkness. Light does not enter. The angels are not only isolated physically but metaphysically. Suspension in time. They are held until the day of judgment. Time is not linear here, it's a loop of waiting and regret. Chaotic geography, sharp rocks, barren plains, desert winds, all contribute to a realm of torment without flame. silence and separation. They are cut off from divine communication. Unlike humans, they cannot repent. The Book of Jubilees, another ancient Jewish text, echoes this punishment, affirming that certain angels are imprisoned beneath the earth, awaiting future judgment. 3. Theological symbolism. Chaos versus divine order. In biblical and mythological thought, darkness is often symbolic of chaos, uncreation, and exile. The realm of the imprisoned angels thus represents a reversion to pre-creation disorder, a space where cosmic rebellion is contained so that the ordered world may persist. In Genesis 1 verse 2 we read, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." This deep is the Hebrew Tehom, a primeval abyss, the same idea echoed in later texts. The prison of the angels may be viewed as a return to this primordial chaos, locked away so it cannot consume creation again. By imprisoning rebellious angels here, God does not destroy them immediately, but contains their influence, ensuring the cosmic hierarchy is maintained. 4. Comparisons across traditions. The theme of a dark underworld or prison of divine rebels is not unique to Enochic literature. Many ancient cultures and later theological systems reflect this idea. Christian tradition, Tartarus. In 2 Peter 2 verse 4 we read, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell, Tartarus, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment." Here the Greek term Tartarus is used, a term from Greek mythology referring to the lowest region of the underworld, even deeper than Hades. The fusion of Enoch's dark prison with Tartarus reveals how Judeo-Christian theology incorporated Greco-Roman concepts to communicate spiritual truths. B. Greek mythology. In Hesiod's Theogony, the Titans who warred against the Olympian gods were imprisoned in Tartarus, described as being as far below the earth as the sky is above it. Like the Watchers, these beings represent cosmic rebellion, beings of immense power who sought to challenge the established divine order and were buried in darkness as a result. C. Mesopotamian influence. In Sumerian mythology, the concept of Kur, the netherworld, includes regions of darkness and imprisonment. Some scholars suggest that the Enochian abyss may have been influenced by such older Near Eastern ideas, fused with Jewish theology to create a new vision of divine justice. 5. Psychological and archetypal interpretations. Beyond its theological role, the abyss where the angels are imprisoned can also be interpreted symbolically or psychologically. In Jungian psychology, darkness often represents the unconscious mind, the hidden, repressed parts of the self. The rebellious angels, then, are archetypes of uncontrolled passion, pride, and hubris. 6. Awaiting judgment, the realm's temporal function. The imprisoned angels are not destroyed but held until the final judgment. This introduces a temporal dimension to the dark realm. It is not eternal damnation, as in some Christian interpretations of hell, but temporary containment. This suggests several ideas. Justice is deliberate. God's judgment is not impulsive. It unfolds with cosmic patience. Hope for vindication. While the angel's fate may be sealed, this structure supports apocalyptic visions in which all hidden things, good and evil, are brought to light. A warning: for humanity, this realm becomes a symbolic deterrent, showing that no power, however celestial, escapes consequences. 7. Literary impact and later influence. The image of a dark, chaotic prison for fallen beings has left a profound mark on literature, art, and theology. Dante's Inferno echoes Enochian imagery in its deeper circles of hell, icy, dark, and silent. Milton's Paradise Lost describes Satan and his angels in a burning lake, then later in a fortress in hell's vast abysses. Modern horror and fantasy genres frequently employ the trope of an ancient prison beneath the earth, where malevolent beings are bound until some ritual or hubris sets them free. Thus, Enoch's vision seeded a rich symbolic tradition, blending fear, awe, and cosmic justice. 8. Cosmic geography. Where is this realm? Some ancient texts, including Enoch, attempt to map this realm. It is not merely metaphorical but imagined as geographically real, under deserts, mountains, or beneath the great waters. In Enoch 18:10-16, Enoch himself is shown, a place of terrible things. And I saw a deep abyss, with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure alike towards the height and towards the depth. This place is described as outside the ordered heavens, yet not part of Sheol or Gehenna. It is a unique zone, a celestial oubliette. While we cannot locate it physically in the ancient worldview, such descriptions reaffirmed that spiritual geography mirrored moral order. Evil was not just abstract, it had a place, a direction, a border. A realm of warning and wonder. The dark, chaotic realm where rebellious angels are imprisoned is one of the most vivid and enduring symbols in religious thought. Foundationally rooted in the Book of Enoch, and echoed in later biblical, apocryphal and mythological texts, it tells of a moral cosmos where even the mightiest beings face judgment. This realm is more than just a prison, it is a theological and symbolic expression of divine justice. It reflects a universe where light and order must triumph, but not without the shadows being seen, named, and restrained. In our age, this abyss may be read metaphorically, representing the consequences of unbridled power, the chaos beneath civilization, or the deep, dark spaces within the soul. But for the ancients, it was both real and terrifying, a realm where cosmic rebellion meets its divine reckoning, held in darkness, silence, and chains, until the end of all things. Secrets of the heavenly hosts, angels and the spiritual governance of weather patterns. One particularly fascinating idea is the belief that certain angels are assigned to control weather patterns, ruling over wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and even the movement of celestial bodies. This concept suggests that behind the natural world lies a complex, spiritual hierarchy, a governance system in which invisible beings influence the visible world. In this exploration we will focus on this hidden order as revealed in the Book of Enoch and other intertestamental Jewish writings, supported by cross-references from biblical texts and mystical traditions. We'll examine how angels are said to manage the elements, what this implies about divine sovereignty, and how such beliefs influenced early cosmology and theology. 1. The Book of Enoch, a cosmic blueprint. The Book of Enoch, especially 1 Enoch, also called the Ethiopian Enoch, is a pseudepigraphal text dated between the 3rd and 1st centuries BCE. Though not included in most biblical canons, it was influential in Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity. One of the most striking sections of the book is known as the Book of the Luminaries, 1 Enoch 72-82. This portion reveals a meticulous calendar system and describes how angels are appointed to govern the heavenly bodies and natural phenomena. Uriel, one of the archangels, is mentioned specifically as the angel responsible for the world and the Tartarus, including the sun, moon, stars, and seasons. In 1 Enoch 75:1-3 the text says, "The leaders of the heads of the thousands who are placed over the whole creation and over all the stars, have to do with the 4 intercalary days, being inseparable from their office, according to the reckoning of the year, and these render service on the 4 days which are not reckoned in the reckoning of the year. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly." This suggests a hidden structure where spiritual agents, angels, oversee and execute the rhythms of nature. 2. The weather angels, named and commissioned. The Book of Enoch goes further to assign roles to specific angels. In 1 Enoch 60, the angels of the waters, winds, thunder, and lightning are named and detailed in their responsibilities. The text reads, "And Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth. And the Lord said to Uriel, Go to Noah." But later, in the same chapter, 60:11-22, we see references to angels who rule over natural forces. Ruhiel, possibly a variant of Uriel, governs the wind. Aramiel oversees thunder and lightning. Zerachiel manages the blazing lights of the sky. Regel is sometimes identified as the angel who maintains balance in the natural world. This division of labor among heavenly beings mirrors earthly governance, like ministers in charge of different departments. Just as a human king appoints officials to oversee his realm, the divine king assigns angels to govern his creation. 3. Biblical echoes. nature obeying the divine will. The idea that spiritual beings command nature is not unique to the Book of Enoch. It resonates deeply with themes found in the Hebrew Bible. For example, Psalm 148 verse 8. Fire and hail, snow and mist, stormy wind fulfilling his word. This verse hints that natural forces act in obedience to God's command, possibly through angelic intermediaries. Job 38-39, God describes to Job the intricate workings of creation. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Job 38 verse 22. While not naming angels directly, these verses imply that natural elements are part of a divine treasury, perhaps managed by spiritual stewards. Revelation 7 verse 1 in the New Testament continues the tradition. After this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds. Here, angels quite literally control wind currents, stopping them until they receive permission from heaven. This imagery draws from apocalyptic Jewish sources, especially 1 Enoch. 4. Weather as spiritual communication. In ancient worldviews, weather was not merely a result of atmospheric physics. It was also a form of divine communication. Storms, droughts, and rainbows were interpreted as messages, either blessings or judgments, from the divine realm. Angels therefore did not just control weather for functionality, they were also agents of divine justice and prophecy. Thunderstorms were often seen as divine displeasure. Rain was a blessing associated with heavenly favor. Drought or unnatural weather patterns were interpreted as punishment for sin. In 1 Enoch 100:1-3, the final judgment is described using natural disasters. And in those days the angels shall return and hurl themselves to the east upon the Parthians and Medes, and they shall destroy the land and everything in it, and great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth. The earth itself reacts to angelic movement, showing a mystical connection between spiritual forces and the environment. 5. Kabbalistic interpretations, angels as channels of divine energy. In later Jewish mysticism, especially in Kabbalah, angels are seen as channels through which divine energy flows into the world. The Sephirotic tree, a diagram of divine emanations, associates different angels with specific Sephirot, aspects of God. For example, Raphael corresponds with Tiferet, beauty/harmony, and may oversee healing and balanced forces in nature. Gabriel, associated with Gevurah, judgment, is often linked to fire and destruction, perhaps even storm and lightning. Uriel, meaning light of God, reflects divine illumination, controlling celestial lights like the sun and moon. These interpretations continue the tradition found in Enochic literature but develop it in a more philosophical and symbolic framework. Kabbalists believed that when balance in the spiritual realms was disrupted, such as through sin or evil, the physical world reflected this through natural calamities. Conversely, righteousness and spiritual alignment resulted in harmony in the elements. 6. Theological implications, a spiritual physical cosmos. This angelic governance over nature supports a holistic worldview where the spiritual and physical realms are deeply intertwined. The universe is not a mechanical system running independently of God but a living, breathing creation, constantly in dialogue with the divine through intermediaries. Implications include God's sovereignty. Even the smallest weather change is ultimately under divine control, mediated by his angelic servants. Human responsibility. Because human sin can corrupt creation, see Genesis 6 in the context of Enoch, moral behavior affects the environment. Nature's purpose. Weather is not random. It has a moral and prophetic dimension. This framework shaped how ancient peoples understood plagues, floods, and droughts. Rather than natural accidents, these events were interpreted as part of a divine plan, executed through heavenly agents. 7. Criticism and transition to scientific views. With the rise of modern science, meteorology has replaced angelology in explaining the weather. Wind, rain, and storms are now understood through pressure systems, jet streams, and moisture content. Yet the spiritual perspective hasn't vanished. Many religious individuals and traditions still see divine will operating through natural processes. The angelic explanation is not so much about denying science, but about interpreting meaning behind it. The mystery remains: why do certain disasters occur at specific times? Why do weather patterns sometimes defy prediction? For spiritual thinkers, this mystery leaves room for divine interaction. 8. Modern symbolism and spiritual weather. In contemporary spirituality, weather symbolism still thrives. Rain may symbolize cleansing, renewal. Storms represent chaos, upheaval, or divine confrontation. Rainbows symbolize covenant and peace, Genesis 9. Some modern spiritual movements even engage in weather prayer, asking for rain in drought or protection from storms. While few may explicitly refer to angels, the underlying belief in a spiritual order governing nature persists. Even in literature and film, weather often corresponds to spiritual states, reflecting joy, tragedy, or transformation. The secret symphony of the skies. The concept of angels governing the weather may sound mystical or even mythological in the modern age, but it reflects a profound truth embedded in ancient spiritual thought. The world is not inert. It is alive, orchestrated, and responsive to the moral and spiritual state of creation. From the Book of Enoch to Revelation and from Psalms to Kabbalah, a consistent vision emerges. Angels are more than messengers. They are administrators of divine will. Through wind, fire, rain, and light, they carry out the orders of heaven, ensuring that even the elements follow the rhythms of a higher plan. This sacred order, often hidden from human eyes, invites us to see the world not as random or chaotic, but as deeply purposeful, infused with spiritual intelligence. Whether through the crashing of thunder or the gentle fall of rain, perhaps what we call weather is simply the voice of heaven, speaking through its angelic host. Thank you for joining us on this celestial journey through the seven heavens of Enoch. From the realms of angels and watchers to the throne of the Almighty, we've only scratched the surface of these ancient mysteries. If you found this exploration enlightening, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more hidden truths and forgotten texts. Share your thoughts. Which heaven fascinated you most? What secrets do you think still lie beyond? Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and remember, the heavens declare more than we've ever been told. Stay curious and we'll see you in the next video.